All right, welcome guys. So our first video test and our first lesson that we're going to do today. Kind of first thing we're going to do what I like to make at home when I'm usually, in the mood to eat a lot, steak and some potatoes and veggies. But I'll show you a way you can achieve it in a way where you know how to eat it like if you were in a restaurant. Simple things. We just got some baby potatoes, heirloom carrots, asparagus. The essentials, you got some shallots, garlic, you got some herbs, you got rosemary, thyme, fresh bay leaf, lots of butter. Always gonna make things a lot better. A little bit of lemon and lemon zest, and some red wine. So, probably first thing we're gonna show you is how to make my way of crispy potatoes. Right. First thing you gotta do is boil it. But another way to kind of infuse more flavor into potatoes is when you boil it, you season your water and you add some aromatics. So first thing we're going to do, come over here. Right, we're going to season our water heavily with some kosher salt or whatever salt you have at home. Table salt's fine. Drop in a couple of sprigs of rosemary. Rosemary and potatoes is a very classical combination together. So if you want to go a little bit more heavy on rosemary, that's up to you. Basically, this is going to be your meal. So however you want to make it your way, go have at it. So we're going to let that steep for a little bit, maybe 5 minutes. You want to bring it up to a boil. And let the herbs marry with the water. And also, once the potatoes are cooked, we're going to finish this with some herbs, garlic, same herbs you have. So you're basically infusing the flavors of the water and herbs in the potatoes. Like you're putting it in layers. That way it's more concentrated in the end instead of just one big batch. So. And next thing we have over here, I don't know if you can see, some beautiful steaks. This is some prime, dry age, tomahawk. Not tomahawk, call them cowgirl. But you can see the marbling on that, all right? And it's about a pound each, 16 ounces. So, we got some friends over tonight. We're going to eat good. Some whiskey and some wine. And then, first thing, while we got the water boiling over there, we're going to start our mise en place. So, mise en place is one of the things we talk about in our kitchen is basically have everything in its place. So when you cook, it's kind of like when you see someone cook at Panda Express, right? They have everything set up. So when they cook, it's just ready, set, and go. So what we're gonna do is cut vegetables, cut our asparagus, right? The ends of the asparagus are a little fibrous, so you want to trim a little bit, but not too much. So if they're jumbo and you don't want to trim too much, what you can do is cut them off and use a peeler and peel, because basically the peel is the thing that's going to be fibrous, and if you don't cook it enough, it's going to be stuck in your teeth or make it very hard to eat. But in this case, these are just large asparagus. So we can just cut off the ends and they should be fine. So, and with this, what we're going to do is just leave this on the side. We also have some water going that we're going to blanch them in. And also we got these beautiful heirloom carrots that I picked up in the market this morning. When I cook vegetables like this, I say it's organic. Most people peel them. I don't. I just leave the peel on it. Give it a quick rinse, quick wash, because they are going to have some dirt on them. So once we trim this off, we're going to give it a quick rinse. Because there's no point of peeling it. There's a lot of actual nutrients, good nutrients that you have on the skin. The same thing, like if you're going to make a stock, let's say with onions, people usually peel them. We usually don't waste it. Just leave it on there, gives it more flavor. I guess that's what they told me. I never asked my old chef when I used to work for him. One of those things you just say, yes, chef. and you just go at it. Carrots in a bowl. We'll give them a rinse in a second. What we're going to start on next is, our aromatics, garlic and shallots. So here we got some fresh garlic. If you don't have fresh garlic and you just got garlic clove at home, that's no problem. This is a little bit more work, but whatever suits best for you, as long as you got garlic, makes the dish more complex, gives it more flavor, gives you that little bit of the bite. We'll clean this off a little bit. We got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cloves. What I'll usually do is just chop this up. If I have leftovers, that's all right. If you chop them up, leftovers, what you can do is what I like to do if I have leftover chopped garlic is I make fried garlic, fried in oil. That way, you don't waste the garlic, and then in the end, you'll have garlic oil. So garlic oil has a lot of use. You can use that for stir fry or just using it instead of plain old regular oil. You do is basically taking the garlic, take your knife, don't do that. It's in the bottom and just smash it down. So that way it's easier to peel later on. It comes off instead of, having you come out this way and peel it. That's going to be a nightmare. So this is the easiest way for me, I think, to peel garlic. There's other ways where you put them in a bowl together and you shake them and the skin just kind of comes off. But this way we're just going to chop this anyways. So just get them into pieces. All right, see, they just peel off, just come off naturally. And we are going to take some of this bottom stems off because that won't chop as easy as the rest of the meat in the garlic. If we can just pull them out, then that's fine. All right, a lot of garlic. No such thing as too much garlic in my cooking. So more the better. Sometimes the less. They say less is more. So, and in a lot of things, less is more, but not with garlic. And then we also got shallots. Shallots is pretty much like a hybrid of an onion and a garlic together. It's great. Yeah, they're really awesome, When I was working for a French guy before, he'd call them echalotes. Like I thought he was just joking, or he was trying to play some jokes on me. But I guess that's how they pronounce it where he's from. So
Part of the onion family?
it's part of the onion family, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, very strong. Not of a big bite as like a red onion. People think it's like a red onion, but it's also subtle. It's great for vinaigrettes. If you're making vinaigrettes, to add that little extra flavor. It's great to add on there, But usually when we work at our place in the kitchen, we use it to flavor or to finish vegetables, give it an extra complexity and extra flavor and girth on not girth, but like just a little extra something. And this one, usually when I cut, right, just basically you use your knuckle as a guide. You just take your knife, the back of your knife in here, and you just go down. So you just move your fingers back and forth while your knife is still in the back of your knuckle. That's just probably one way to kind of safely use a knife. And there's plenty of way to kind of hold a knife. I'm comfortable with, call it a pinch grip. That way you can have more control of the knife. There's some people that hold it like this. In a sense, if you're comfortable with it, you can rock it, but you don't really have control of the knife since you're back too much on the handle, and then most of the blade is up here. So I like to go in the middle, or like if you have a knife, you find a center point where it's balanced, and that's where you can hold the pinch grip, So kind of help it that way, yeah. So it's all depending on the size of the knife you have. But basically what we're going to do here is just like rough chop it. I'll show you a couple of ways to kind of make like, if you don't have a food processor at home, like I don't have one here yet. So if you want to make like a fine paste, I'll show you a little trick we do in the kitchen where we add salt to kind of just break it down. So we'll probably take half of this way, and I'll show you one way. So actually, we'll just chop this all together first, finally. This old school way of chopping garlic. Now we got food processors. You can do like, a whole 5-pound bag of peeled garlic. But, back in the day, this is how we do it. You had to learn the hard way before you can use all the easy tools. All right. We'll set some of this to the side. We'll just keep it just over here. And then I will take, and I'll show you how to make a paste out of it. We'll take some of this, right? Just keep chopping it some more. And then what you will do is you'll take, regular kosher salt, whatever you have, right? You just run a little bit. Because salt will help break down anything, right? Especially this one, since garlic has a lot of sugar and moisture, this will help. And then what you're basically going to do is take the tip of your knife and you just crush down, right? And you'll see in a little bit, we're going to make this into, like it's almost going to look translucent. And you can see all the liquid that's coming out of the garlic, and that's with the help of the salt. So, if you want to make it a little bit more finer, because the more you work garlic, the more different flavors it'll have, especially like when you cook it and you roast it or fry it. They all have different complexity and different flavor aspects. So you can kind of see the difference, right? This one looks a little bit more mashed. This one's a little bit more like darker, I guess like cream yellow, and this one's more looks like white corn. In a sense, I don't know if you can see it, but in my eyes, it looks a little bit different hue. So we got that. 2 kinds of, ways to break down garlic. Wipe our table here. Now we'll do the shallots. Cut in half. And you got a little bit of this stem down here. Right? And what we do, you basically just cut it into onion, but you want to fine dice it. So you want to do long strokes this way, cut them this way, and then just chop them. So same thing when you cut, just basically you use the back of your knife to guide it. Usually cut this in probably 2 cuts, so you have 3 sections, and then you just, that part, and then you have the bottom. You just kind of rough chop it a little bit and then add it to the rest. So this is like classic, way to finish vegetables is just garlic, shallots, a little bit of butter after they're par blanched. Best way to finish it, add more flavor than just regular steamed vegetables. So, one more quick chop. Now we got our mies ready. And one thing I like to do too with the end of the vegetables is, this is what you call a microplane, right? Microplane basically is also a zester. I like to add citrus, or sometimes vinegar, and I feel like it brightens the dish more, and then it almost acts same thing as like a salt, brightens it up, gives it more complexity. And one way, if you just add it, say if we just cook vegetables with just this component and butter, it'll be good. But once you add that little bit of citrus complexity, it completely changes the whole dynamic of the dish. So I like to add that in the end. But also now we're going to probably start cooking. Actually, I'm going to rinse these carrots real quick. All right. Yeah, we got this all rinsed off. Some people might think, oh, it's not so simple to cook a steak. Yeah, it is. I mean, depending on the steak you have, I'll teach you my tricks on how I think the steak is ready and how long to cook it. People always have, oh, how long do I cook a steak? First of all, depending on the size, like this is probably, what to say, almost like an inch thick, right? It's not what you would see well, you could probably see an inch thick at your regular grocery store. Yeah, depending on how hot your oven is or your stove. This way I'm going to show you when we cook it, we're just going to, sear it hot. You got to have a nice, not nice, but maybe like a good conducting pan. So what we're going to use is a black cast iron pan. That's probably the best way to retain heat. So when you sear the meat, you don't have too much moisture, and then that defeats the purpose of you browning the meat. So that's what you'd want. We're not going to pop this in this oven. We're just going to sear on both sides. Baste it with butter, and then let it rest. That's the important part when you cook steak, is you let it rest. If you feel like it's still rare, you wait 5-10 minutes, and it's completely going to change from, like, say, meat. If you feel like it's medium rare, and you let it sit, it's probably going to be medium by the time it's done. So that's very, one important trick is people don't rest when they cook their steak. Okay, now we got all our meats ready. One thing I like to do with the vegetables when I saute them is we like to blanch them. So, you basically have a pot of water here. We have a strainer in it, built in. This is pretty much a pasta setup, but I like to use it for vegetables. If you're gonna cook vegetables, you don't want to waste water. I would suggest starting with the harder vegetable first. So in this case, we have asparagus and carrots. So carrots is a lot more rootier and it's firm. So this is probably going to take, 4 minutes to blanch. So the reason of blanching is two reasons. One is to brighten the color, right? When you cook it in salted water, you're going to look at the color is going to be more vibrant and almost dark color. And that way it's also going to cook faster when you're going to saute it. Instead of sauteing it raw, it's going to be undercooked, or sometimes you cook it too long, it's become a mush. So this way when we just saute it lightly, we're just adding the flavors of the garlic, shallots, and herbs, and the butter. So we'll let that sit there. And then also one quick thing, everyone has butter at home. One way to elevate butter is what we like to do is we like to make it brown butter. So butter is basically just whipped cream, right? When you whip it, it just forms into this little beauty. But there's 3 components to butter. There's the fat, the milk solids, and the water. So what makes butter brown is the fat caramelizing the milk solids. That's where you'll see this like little brown granulates in brown butter, and then basically the water is just going to evaporate it off. So we're going to start with a good amount because it's going to be reduced. So this is probably at home would be like a little bit over a stick and a half of butter. So we're just going to run that. I'm going to start with high heat. This is on high. We're just going to melt it. And then you'll see the steps when the butter changes, and then you'll see it. It'll be like super quick. It'll melt, and you'll see it bubble, and the bubble will suddenly just kind of slow bubbles, and then you'll see it just turn color. Almost that's like this nutty color. And then also the flavor will be just like that. It will be nutty in flavor and adds more to the dish you're adding it to. So, yeah. Yeah, if you see like what I cook at home is just basic stuff that you would find at anyone's house, right? I mean, just cutting boards, some stove, a regular stove, and regular pots and pan. Like, I don't have a food processor or anything crazy, but I will get to it later on. We're going to make some cool stuff when all that stuff comes in, since, things are taking forever to come because of our friend COVID. All right, so we got our water here, right? They're getting happy, right? Salted. You can see in the color, right? It looks like beer, like light beer. Right? It's like hue, amber, right? That's when you know the flavors have steeped into the water. So once we have that working, then we're going to add our potatoes. So the potatoes we have two kinds, baby yellow Dutch and baby purple Peruvian potatoes. They're completely different texture and flavor. This is sweeter, softer, and this is just like, it's also soft and sweet, but the purple potatoes probably has that one of my favorite. But we're using both just for different textures, right? So, and we're gonna boil them, and that way, when we fry them later on, they're gonna get really crispy. So they're almost like twice cooked potatoes. So if you think about when you're cooking French fries, the reason why they get so crispy is they're twice cooked. So when you do French fries, you first par cook them in low oil. So that way, you kind of, in a sense, same thing we're doing, we're blanching it. And then once they're cooled off, when you cool them down, they will naturally build up a starch, their starch around it, and that's kind of, the sugars. So when you fry it in a higher temp oil, the skin will brown up and get all crispy. So we'll let this potatoes kind of cook in for about 12, 15 minutes. One way to check it later is you take a knife and you poke it, and if it still stays on there, it's not ready. But if you poke it and it slides off, then you're good to go. So, all right, you can see the butter here. You kind of see it like bubbling. You'll see the part that's frothing up top. That's the actual milk solid, and then basically what is steaming off is the water weight in the butter. So you'll see this part right here. This is wants to fight back. This is the milk solid that's going to caramelize later on, and you can see it now. It's starting to brown in some places. So once you have it all melted, we'll just turn it down, and then gradually you'll see this milk froth up top go down, and you'll see it crystallize. And you can kind of see it on the edge of the pan over here. I don't know if you can see it. You see this part right here? It's a little brown. That's what's going to happen, with the milk solids. And then one way too, say if you have a small stove and you want to, get your pan hot, one trick we would have is get your oven on. Like my oven right now is at 500 degrees, and we have the cast iron in here, right? So it's like super hot. So that way when you cook, you're ready to go. One trick you can do is get your pans hot so you can cook right away. This is starting to get there. You can see the froth on the top is gone, and the bubbles are getting smaller. Now this, you can kind of see them on the bottom, right? A little bit. But those milk solids are eventually going to caramelize. So it's like almost if you're making caramel at home, it'd be the same process. Once you have it melted and you see it turn brown, you have to watch it. Otherwise, if the milk solids go over, and this is going to be bitter and nasty. And you don't want that. And you can see, right? Like you can see the color. It's, starting to turn yellowish, golden brown, kind of. All right, and that will kind of carry on later on. So this is also perfect for, if you want to make just a simple pasta or gnocchi, anything like that. Just add it on there. It's a nice little touch in the end. So we got our carrots. I believe they're almost ready, but we can just pull them out. Right, you can kind of see if I pull them in a bowl. it'll be a little bit more vibrant in color. You can see definitely the tip of the top, right? Like the top and the tip, like it's like almost neon green. So that's basically what happens when you have salt and water. You kind of bring out the chlorophyll. Yeah. Now we have the butter here, and you can see it starting to get there. Right, and just, it's hard to tell with my spoon because my spoon is brass, but yeah, you can, if I push this aside, you can kind of see the milk solids in the bottom, right? You'll see them, they're just like little golden brown. That's what you want. And most people strain this. I don't. So yeah, I think we're right. We're just about here. So you can just turn this off. Anything else, like when you have heat, this will still carry over. So if you think it's, under in brownness, just pull it off the heat, and you'll see it come up darker in a little bit. So we'll let this set aside. Potatoes are going. Now we got to do our asparagus. Same thing, but this is probably going to take a lot shorter in cooking time. So just let it sit in there. This will probably take like 2-3 minutes. It's a lot softer of a vegetable. When I cook my vegetable and I blanch them, I don't do them long because I like to have a little bit of a bite. So that way, it's like gives you that freshness impression and that feeling when you bite into something crisp. You can just let this sit out next to the asparagus, since we're going to cook it all right away anyways. Usually I'd run it under water on an ice bath to shock it. But as soon as we start cooking the steak, we're going to go straight into the vegetables. So we're going to do two things at once. They call that multitasking. And some things you can multitask at work when you're cooking, but it's hard to be like saying cooking and then chopping at the same time, right? Because you're going to lose, your timing. So you can multitask if you can see everything around you, but not going back and forth and your mind's everywhere. So yeah, you can see here with the asparagus when you blanch it, you can see the color. Like vibrant green. That's one of the things you want to do. We'll probably just let this run under water, because if you don't, it will turn because it'll overcook. So we'll just let it chill. Let it run under water in some cold water. Stop the cooking process. So we're done with that pot. We can turn that off. Now we get to the best part, right? The steak. Set this aside in here. We got our cast iron. And this is hot. Woo. Yeah, my towel's even hotter. Cast iron is probably one of the best things to cook steak on because it conducts a lot of heat. And it gets super hot. But you also got to season it. That's one of the things. Sometimes I forget about this. I cook steak and I leave it on there and forget about it. So you'll constantly have to re-season it. And one other trick when you cook steak, right? You don't want to just have steak in the fridge, open it, and then pop it in the pan. You want to at least let it set for like 20-30 minutes to come up to room temp. So that way, basically, when you're cooking, heat, it's direct heat, right? So you have the hot stove, the pan, and it's pushing it into the meat. So if you have something cold and not room temp, it's fighting and it's just basically going to steam your meat. So if you have it room temp, and this is pretty much, it's just cool. It's cool to the touch, but not like super cold. That's what you would want in a steak. So that way, when you cook it, it's just, cooking all in the right temp. It's not cold, really cold in the middle, cold at the top, and so that way you won't have imperfect temperatures. The next thing, when you cook a steak, you would want to season last. Because lastly, salt brings out moisture. And when we sear, we want to get things brown. And if there's moisture in the pan, you're defeating the purpose of browning your protein. So what we're going to do is just season it liberally, right? When I say liberally, it's a good amount of salt. Because when we sear this on a pan, most of the salt's going to go into the oil. Season liberally. If you have a pepper grinder, best way to use it is on steaks. You don't really want to have pre-ground pepper, because pepper loses its spice once it's opened up, rather from its seed form. So you would, make sure it's patted on there. All right, season liberally. Don't be shy. Now, you would want to be shy depending on the salt you use. So, this is like what we use at work. It's called diamond crystal. A lot of places use this salt. Morton also uses kosher salt, but that one's a lot stronger in its salt content. So if you're going to use Morton kosher salt, cook with it first, see how much you use of it, and then, you go adjusting based on that. So now we got a really hot pan, and we call this ripping hot, right? Because once it's smoking right now, there's no oil. There's a little bit of residual oil from the seasoning on the pan, but once we add the oil, you'll see it start to smoke heavily. So we just got a little bit of canola blended oil. Spit it around there. Right, and you see it, it's almost, we call it ripping hot. And then one mistake is when you cook a steak or when you pop it on oil, they go like this. Now the oil puddle is here, and when you drop it like this, it's going to come towards you. One way I like to do is, let me get a little bit more oil over here. Get it down, right, to the tip, and you'll hear it sizzle. And then pace it away from you, right? So that way you don't have oil splatters. Literally, when I was in school, the chef would go like this. He would put his face down and see if oil would splatter, and see that was one way to see if I was gonna pass and see what I was doing. You get a little bit of nerves. Sometimes you get crackle here and there, but that's cooking scars, right? You get used to it. I just press it down because, sometimes when they cut steak, it's not even. So you have little pockets of, craters. You'll see here as craters. So I just press it on here just to kind of, give the uneven part of the steak a chance to get brown. Right? So in molecular terms, when the steak gets brown, they call it the Maillard reaction. Right? It's basically the proteins breaking down. That's why it's turning brown. The protein and the sugar is breaking down to kind of give it that nice caramelized color. So we'll probably let it sit for 2 minutes, and we do have it on high. You let it sit, cook in there. Our potatoes are almost ready, so we'll let that sit, get crispy, get brown. Check on our veggies. They're cool to the touch. They're ready to go. If you're worried about, we're gonna cook this later on in a pan, and it's gonna be hot oil, you're gonna get a little bit of a splatter. So what you can do is we'll grab right here behind this camera, getting up close. We'll grab a bowl, get some towels, put it down, kind of dry them out. Soak them on there, so that way when you put it in the hot oil later, you don't have splatters and you get all freaked out. So let it sit, do its thing. I don't know if you can see, right? You can kind of almost see the bottom of this before I even flip it, right? You'll see that part. You see that crust? That's an indication to know that it's ready to flip. So without even looking and peeking, I already know that's a good start to flip the steak, right? And you can see it's nice and golden brown. And that's what I was talking about, like pockets, right? You'll have that. That's all right, you know. Not everything's perfect. And I'm just using a spoon instead of a spatula, just because I'm used to it, right? Now, since the steak is really thin, I'll let this cook, flip on the other side for just 1 minute. And then we'll just turn off the heat and let it sit there. So that way it can kind of gradually cook and bring up the temperature on the other side of the steak. This is just residual fat and oil from the steak. And you can see once we turn off the heat, we're gonna add some butter to this and some aromatics. So let's go check on our potatoes. We take one, right? Take our knife. Kind of see if it's gonna fall off soon, but you know it's almost there. So we'll probably give it a minute or so. Maybe one's ready right here. Yeah, it's slowly falling off. That means it's almost there. And we are gonna smash them. We're gonna smash them a little bit just to create more surface area to get it crispy. That way we'll have nice and crispy potatoes. Right, and then the fun part now that we have it off is we'll just add a big chunk of butter, right? Because why not? And you'll see it, right? And it'll sizzle. And then this is like the little fireworks right here when you add your little aromatics. Basically, you're frying the herbs. So we'll turn that off. Now you can also take a piece of garlic. Take a piece of whole garlic that we have right here. And just smash it and then add it to the butter. Right? With a good whack. If there's some skin on there, it's all right. A little skin never hurt nobody. Add it on there. So now we're infusing this butter to the steak. So this method, you know, we do it. You can do it with fish, chicken, or beef. It's just basically basting, butter basting. You know, take your herbs, take your butter and garlic, and you just put it on one side. You know, we'll do this steak, and then we'll turn it over to the other one. Do a little switcheroo. You know, if you're not comfortable with this, it's all right. You can practice. Sometimes I'm not with this cast iron because it's so heavy. So, and if you can feel it too, like, right? It could be tricky because this is dry aged steak. So, one thing I forgot to tell you about dry aged steak, turn off the potatoes. You're basically taking out moisture out of the beef. So you have concentrated beef flavor. So when you take out liquid out of a beef, like usually dry aged steak loses 5 to 10% of its residual water weight. So now you have more fortified beef flavor. Almost burned myself there. And then that way when it's not that much liquid, it'll cook a lot faster. So what we're gonna do is just basically take this out and let it rest on here. A little pan, garlic. I mean, you could throw this away, but we're not, you know. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook the potatoes in here. So we'll let the steak rest. I have an oven on. I'm just resting it now for 10 minutes, and then when we're about to plate and eat, I'm gonna flash it in the oven for like 2 minutes, just to bring it up to temp. So sure, we'll let it rest, so they can see it over here. Get all happy, right? Next to the whiskey, yeah, steak and whiskey. Great combination. Cheers. All right, we'll take the potatoes and we'll drain these bad boys. Usually the setup I have is like if I'm cooking vegetables, right? You have a pot of water, saute pan or a cast iron, and then another one just in case for anything else. So I'm just gonna drain these potatoes. Little bits here and there, and then we'll just run it under water so it's easier to play with when we smash them. So now that our pan is here, we'll just take off this mess we made here real quick. Sometimes I don't clean as I go, like how I tell my cooks. Clean as I go, but I don't do it when it comes to me. I'm the most what do you call that term?
You need that dish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll just grab this bowl real quick. Kind of a big bowl for all this stuff, but hey, use what you have. When you're cooking at home, there's no right or wrong way to do things. Just do things that you want to do. You'll mess up here and there. And you learn how you mess up and do it better next time. I've been cooking since I was, professionally since I was 18. So that's 15 years from now. And there's still some stuff I learn every day. And that's the beauty about cooking is, it's like an art. It's never ending. You can look at something that people cook, the same things all over and over, and then one guy might have a different way to cook it, but it has the same end result. And that's the beauty about it for me. So we'll just wipe this down. We'll grab our potatoes and we'll get to smashing. Take a back of a spoon and literally just smashing them, right? And you can just see like purple potatoes are like super vibrant, nice color. So we'll just take some of these out on the cutting board. This is like one of those things I cook often, right? Like steak and potatoes. So you can have it with mashed potatoes. That's pretty much classic. But
Smash it with a spoon.
smashing it with spoons. Was that?
You can do all of them?
Yeah, we're just real quick. It's just like with a quickness. So if you got kids, you want to smash something, you just go boom, 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 just smash them, right? So that way, when we crisp them up, you have all these, craters, right? So instead of being a whole potato, when you fry it, you only have the outside crispy. But when you smash them, you create more room for the oil to get to. One thing, probably someone learned this, they probably messed it up. They're like, oh, we boiled potatoes, chef, but someone smashed them. And he just said, just fry them anyways. Probably. A lot of things happen in the kitchen that way, just by mistake, or like in life, So we're just going to bring our stove back on high, let this get hot, and then we'll get to cooking the potatoes. Now we're cooking the potatoes, we're also going to finish our vegetables. We'll take a pan over here. There's another pan we have. Going back. See, I like to cook with high heat. That way you don't have to cook longer and things don't overcook. So now with this stuff, you have leftover oil, right? You got beef fat, butter, garlic, herbs, all that goodness. You don't want to waste that. So you just add the potatoes, right? This will make good breakfast too. Breakfast potatoes like this, unbelievable. They're like almost like hash browns if you get them crispy. Right? And this, you don't want to be shy with, any fat or oil. Just add a little bit more. So we did season the water in this, but you also want to season it a little bit more. What I like to do is I season as I go. It wasn't a lot, it's just a little bit. Because potatoes, being the starch of themselves, they don't have a lot of flavor, or they can, they would need a lot more salt for them to get the flavor that we want. That's why when we boil them in a, flavorful water, almost kind of like a French term we call it court bouillon. So we kind of infuse it in there, so it kind of just adds it in the end. And the same thing, like if you're gonna, do a herb potatoes, I don't want to add something in the water that I'm not going to use in the end run. So that way you're building flavors instead of, maybe you might want to cook it with some wine and then in the herbs. It might work, but, if you want to build something, you start from the bottom, you add it in the end. So that way you get a nice end product. So this will get all crispy. Since you already have the oven on, what you can do is you can just pop this. The oven's at 500. We can literally just pop it in the oven. It's one of those things, if you forget about it, it's like, oh shit, I forgot about the potatoes. That's all right. It'll be nice and crispy. So now we got our pan. All right, we can start cooking our vegetables. So same thing as start, see it get hot. Add a little bit of oil. And since our potatoes or our vegetables is already blanched, it won't take long to cook. For example, we're going to take these bowl, finish this. So we're going to cook our, since you have a lot, we're eating for 4. So we want to make sure we have enough food for everybody. Same thing with this. You see it hot. You'll see the oil start kind of rippling through the pan. See it start to smoke. I turn it off, right? Or just turn it down, low. And you add in your aromatics. Now, when you add garlic to a hot pan, you got to be very careful. You got to make sure when you add garlic, you got to cook right away. Otherwise, it'll burn. So a little bit of shallots, some garlic, right? Move that around a bit. Right? Oh, you can smell it. Smell the garlic toasting. You see it getting brown. Once you get there, add your vegetables. Right? So that way, if it's browning more, the vegetables are cold, it will stop the butter from getting darker. All right. Now I turn off the heat. Let the residual heat kind of carry through. Try not to get your vegetables out there. Turn it back on for a little bit on low. And we can add some of that brown butter. Right? And you can see in the brown butter, you see those brown speckles. Right? That's the goodies right there. So you can just add that. Add that in. Let it get happy. And then my piece de resistance. You can put a little bit of lemon zest, right? You could add lemon juice too, but lemon zest is a lot brighter. You have the oils in there, make things open up. And most people won't even use lemon zest. They'll just use the juice and throw the whole thing away. You know, that way, zest something first and then juice it later. Because if you're to juice it, you can't zest it anymore because it's all broken down. So what we're doing here is just, just bringing it up to temperature, let it get it warm because pretty much the veggies are already cooked. And you can kind of see they're all getting happy. Season it, salt, some pepper. And then you're done. We'll set this aside. We'll just add the rest. A little bit more garlic shallots. Yum, yum, yum. While that's cooking, let's go check on our potatoes. You can see they're kind of, you can kind of flip these potatoes and you can kind of just see maybe they're getting crispy. Not, it's all good. Put more time. And you can kind of see a little bit here on the, on the end you kind of see it kind of caramelize. Especially that one. So we'll just finish these on the stove. What we also like to do is probably make a little pan sauce, red wine sauce. So we'll start with some, if you have any open red wine that you don't want to drink anymore, you can just start with that. Usually you do it with the pan drippings on the pan, but you can just take some red wine, reduce that down. If you have beef stock, you can add a little bit to it. In this case, we have a reduced beef stock that we use at work. I just took some home, because we were making it. So this beef stock was reduced for 2 days, and you can kind of see this is nothing but just beef stock or veal stock and red wine. It's almost it's viscous, super thick, and that's just all the bones and the collagen breaking down. It's really sticky, and you got that makes your mouth want to pucker. Nice classic. Our potatoes here are, getting crispy. Some of them a little bit mush, but that's all right. So we're about 5 minutes out. You know, we can take the steak back into the oven. Let it come up to temp. And I'll show you a trick too. Once the steak is resting, it will have some juices coming out. And you don't want to throw that out. That's basically flavor. So when you do a red wine reduction, you know, you want to reduce it to half of what you started or almost completely gone. So once this is fully reduced, we'll add our reduced veal stock, or they would say demi-glace. And like anything else, when you reduce it, you'll see it fortified, get dark in color. And this one's getting thick. Basically, the sugar is cooking down. You just add your sauce. And what we want to do is just bring this to a boil. We don't want to reduce it even more, right? Just going to bring it up to temp. Turn off the heat, and then you mount it with butter. And that's your basic steak sauce. That looks good already. So it's bubbling already. We just turn off the heat. You know, nice heaping of butter. And you add it off heat, so that way the butter just doesn't break. Usually you can do this with a whisk, but you can do it with a circular motion in the pan. Right? And that's pretty much your, you know, red wine reduction sauce. A little bit of salt. No pepper is needed, just a little bit of salt to bring it out. So it's been a couple of minutes. We'll just take out the steak. And you'll see there's like liquid in here, right? You can just add that in there. Why not? Okay. Shit. More flavor. Right? And you can put that bone on there. All right. And then we'll take our sauce. And just pour it over the steak. A little bit goes a long way. You know, this is a very concentrated sauce, so you don't want to really pools of it. So just a little bit. We can do the other side. All right. Do one here. Do one there. Do one there. Take this plate. We'll start saucing the rest. And then we are ready to eat. There you go. Voila. Steak with veggies. All right. Try it at home. If you got any questions, let me know. But enjoy. All right. See you guys.